Hey Camping Nation, today we're working on the tow rig. Half-ton truck, a little bit over on capacity when I'm hauling the camper, just a little bit. It's really not that much over. So I'm adding airbags to the rear suspension. This is not a fix, this is a Band-Aid. Not the world's cheapest airbag kit, but it's down there at the bottom. I had to buy this. We'll get to that in a minute. So for those of you who aren't aware of what this is, airbags have been used since the 50s as springs. Some airbag springs. Semis still use them to this day, and they're optional in a lot of luxury vehicles and just used in general here and there. They're used a lot, mostly in the aftermarket industry. You'll see the cars that do the show car thing that look like they're sitting on broken suspension. Those are airbags. The beauty of those airbags is that you can just press a button or flip a switch, or these days bring up your app on your phone, but you can select your ride height. You press a button and it goes up to a certain height. We'll say stock height. And then you can drive like normal. That way, you can stop at the fairgrounds, stop on the square, stop at the car show, and let the air out of the bags, let it drop down, and look amazing, and still have the drivability. That is quite literally the best of both worlds, but it actually gets better. If you design your airbag suspension properly, it'll ride literally like you're riding on air. When you start getting into truck applications, you don't have to worry about reduced payload. A lot of times when you start lowering a vehicle, a pickup especially, you lose load capacity because you have shorter springs and they're just not made for handling weight. Airbags makes it to where you can do all that too. Now that's for a full air ride suspension. This is not a full air ride suspension. To the older people watching, say 50 and over, that'd be my age. Think of air shocks. Back in the day, you'd get air shocks and just drive around like normal, but if you put a load in the trunk or a trailer on the bumper, you put an air hose onto the Schrader valve and you fill it up and you raise the back of your vehicle up. Essentially, that's what this is. Having actual air shocks, there's some huge disadvantages to that, and that's why you pretty much never see them on the market anymore. I don't think they make them. The air shocks, you're putting all that weight on a single bolt where the shock goes on, and it's not made for that kind of weight. So over the years, people have discovered their shocks are breaking off, and it's because they're trying to carry the weight on one bolt. Now, an air ride suspension, or even just an airbag assist suspension, overload suspension if you will, this just goes between the frame and the axle, and you fill it up and it pushes up. These ride beautifully. That is the huge advantage to this. Yes, there are drawbacks. Yes, you can lose an airline. Yes, you can lose an air compressor. This one doesn't even have a compressor. This is, like I said, not the world's cheapest, but close. So no compressor, we're gonna use an air pump. They do leak and lose air over time. The better you put it together, the less air it leaks over time. But people are afraid of this because they think air ride can't carry weight. Yes, it can. Now this is an unbranded model it was off of Amazon. So this is an unbranded model off of Amazon. Had it locally at our local Amazon warehouse over here. Got it the next day. Now this kit also claims to be no drilling, no cutting. Full bolt-on installation. And that's one of my challenges here. I want to see how true their claim is. I'll let them slide when it comes to mounting the Schrader valve. This is the airline that they give you, and this is plenty of it. I hate when people throw crap in the back of my truck. But this is your nylon tubing. I've got it up on the lift. Now, before any of you start complaining about cinder blocks have held up my house for almost 100 years now. If you do this properly, it's perfectly safe. You put it with the holes going up. That's how they're made to support weight. If you put it the other way, with the holes going side to side, that's when they start falling apart. Also, notice, I've got the tire against the concrete. The tire will give before the concrete will go. And I'm willing to bet my life on it. I'm sure this is all going to be metric hardware. So you get to use your M&M wrenches, not fractional. I mean, like I said, it was made in China, of course. And in the end, this should make this truck more stable when towing. Yes, I'm over on payload. Even if I'm not, I still don't like how wishy-washy it feels. Even when I did have a trailer on here that was under the maximum weight, it still felt a little wishy-washy. I don't like feeling any side-to-side movement when I'm driving, unless I'm spinning the tires and sliding sideways. But that's different. There's two ways to plumb these. You can run one Schrader valve to each bag. One valve left, one valve right. Now, a Schrader valve, I know you can't see it from there, but a Schrader valve is the same as what's on your wheels. You go to any gas station, use any bicycle hand pump, you can use the one that plugs into the cigarette lighter, power port, excuse me. You put these on both, one on each bag. The problem, there's advantages and disadvantages here. The disadvantage, you're gonna be forever chasing that forget about that. You're forever gonna be chasing that half pound to get it level, if you're picky. You know, a half pound may not be much, but I know when I had similar stuff in my Suburban, a half pound would make it sit like this from side to side. It was crazy. I had Airlift. It was the cheapest of the cheap. I bought it at Jegs. The bag, it wasn't even a convoluted bag like this. The billows, it was just a bag. It went inside the coil spring. That's the disadvantage of airing them up to two separate Schrader valves. Now, the advantage to doing that is they're two sealed separate systems. I'll get to that in a second. Personally, I feel the advantages of teeing them together and filling at one point. The advantages far outweigh the disadvantages in my situation. That's what I had to buy. I had to buy a tee. I think it was an additional $9. Could have been $13, I'm not sure. This was a week ago. If it's more than 10 minutes ago, it's kind of fuzzy to me. So now I'm gonna have one Schrader valve going to the tee, and then air coming off and air coming off going to each bag. Advantage, like I said, fill it once and it's set, both sides. Disadvantage, it's not separate systems. And what that means, if I put, let's exaggerate for effect, if I put an extra 1,000 pounds on this side of the truck and nothing on that side of the truck, it's gonna push the air, it's gonna push extra hard over here, it's gonna push the air out of the bag, through the hose, right through here, back to the other bag, and it's gonna sit like this, because it's gonna squish the air out of here, and it's gonna push the air out over there, so it's actually gonna lift on the light side. Squish, lift, and now we're riding like this. Not an issue. Not in this situation. If you were doing this for a performance vehicle, it could be a situation, because if you're turning real hard and you're loading up over here and it starts pushing air over there, that could be ugly. But again, that's not what we're doing. This is tow rig application only. If you have to add your own zip ties, use black zip ties. The white ones are less UV safe after a year or so outside, not just in the sun. The sun reflects off the pavement. But after a year or so, maybe 2 years, they get very, very brittle and they start snapping. They'll just snap for no reason. That's something you're not gonna find in the instructions. So I'm gonna look at this other guy's opinion on how to do this, and we'll get started here in just a minute. Here we go, up close. This is all good looking stuff. I still don't know what that is. Comes with a whole bunch of hardware. I'm going to assume all the hardware. That's what they claim. These are the airbag cups. It's not just for holding hardware. There's all that air tubing, the instructions, and this is the valve that I was talking about. And here is the T that I bought. These are really cool, and if you've ever done a refrigerator installation, the ones with the ice maker, then you already recognize this and you know how to use it. If you have not, then you'll see how easy and how cool this is. It makes life a lot easier when you're putting stuff together, and even easier when you're taking stuff apart. And this is much nicer than the quality that you see on semi-trucks. Most of that is plastic. No joke, most of this stuff is plastic underneath semis. Maybe not most, a lot of it is plastic underneath semis as of 10, 12 years ago. I've been out of the business for a little bit. I was always amazed at how cheap and craptastic those things were, because these will break if you get plastic ones. You know, over a couple 100,000 miles. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so I took these off per the instructions. Don't need them. Save the hardware though. Then, page 2 says to take this plate, this bag, these nuts, and this elbow. The elbow is already threaded in all the way with thread locker. I put a wrench on there, it is tight. These are 15 millimeter nuts, well, 15 millimeter socket. Problem with the instructions. Lower bracket. You go back to the layout of the parts, left lower bracket, right lower bracket. Notice a lack of part numbers or anything. There is no identifying markings. Okay, so then I go to the piece, and there's nothing on here except for that scratch and that scratch. So then I laid them out, and they're not the same. They are different. One tilts one way, one tilts the other way. So what I did is I laid this one down like that, I laid that one down like that, and I got it to where this one tilts down and then that one tilts forward. And we'll see if they're right. That was all I could do. One problem with the instructions so far. What I've done too is I've separated all the left pieces from the right-hand pieces, which are mostly just carbon copies. So I've got half of this stuff up here and the other half out of my way. I don't have a whole lot of workspace here. That workbench is more of a junk holder, and I don't have much room there anyways. I'll just use it as a portable workbench. Now there's no explanation for this. Air spring upper bracket, we already bolted that on step 1 onto the air spring airbag. It goes onto here. Okay, with a 3/4 inch long bolt. Unless, for 2-wheel drive trucks only, they want us to put a spacer on here. It doesn't say why. Would a 2-wheel drive truck sit lower and therefore not need a spacer? I don't know. We'll see. We'll do it as they say. And also, since there's no arrows, no defining features, no nothing, I don't know what way is what. Just organize it like it shows on the photo. You got that flange going out and then forward. Yes. This one comes out to the left. Yes. All we see over here is that. So yes. And then in this right-hand corner, you see a little nub. There's your little nub. Put it in the same angle. There it is. And there it is. We'll pop this on here. I installed these airbags a year ago, and I got rid of the truck about a month ago, and I am just now realizing that I was not supposed to put those pieces on. Remember, that's for 2-wheel drive only. Just like that. Bolt comes up through the bottom, right here. Finger tighten only at this stage, so no zip zap. Sorry, buddy. Yep. All right, that's the stack we have right now. Okay, I haven't thought my way out of this one yet. So according to the instructions, front of vehicle, that way. This goes on. This bolt goes to they call it a jounce bumper, but it's the bump stop, the ones I took off step 1. Okay, so that's how I have it. This bolt right here, right up in here, backside, is the jounce bolt. I left it loose, haven't driven it home yet. Now, here's the questionable part. Frame bolt hole brackets, okay? What this is, it's a nut with a handle on it. Vehicle front, over here, right? So right here's those holes, right here and right here, and they are lined up with holes in the frame. I don't see how to get this on the back side of this frame rail. The back side's not open. And you can see by the length of those bolts, 1-inch bolts, it's not supposed to go through the frame rail box to the other side. It's just supposed to go from here to the inside of here. I got no holes under there, so I gotta try and figure this one out. I can usually think my way out of these situations. This might take a minute. I found the way in. It's not easy. Now, I've mentioned I was a mechanic for 20 years. In that almost 20 years, I never once used a lift. We used jack stands and floor jacks. If you needed it higher, you got bigger jack stands. We did everything on the floor. This would be a million times better to do with a lift or pull the bed off. That took me about 30 minutes.
Again, this was a year ago, and I seem to have lost the clip showing how I got those in. I don't remember how I accessed the inside of the frame rail.
1 bolt. Take 2. Well, as you see, I've got it. That one's torqued, that one's zipped, that one's zapped. Okay, next step. Remember back at the beginning when I was trying to sort out the brackets and I went by that slight incline that you were able to see on the picture? Nailed it. Here's what it is. The next step, step 5, you take the airbag and the brackets assemblies, which we already did earlier. And it's going to go in here something like this. It's not quite in position here. It's just tossed in. But this is the important part. See how the spring is sitting like this? This is taller than that. Because of that, this is sitting, it's not sitting like this, like the spring, it's level. Nailed it. So, can you guys see this okay? If not, I'll zoom in. It says that the bolts go inside and come out, bolts from the in to the out, and to put it in the bottom 2 holes on the frame bracket, the one that I just struggled on. Now, that will raise the truck up just a little bit. I don't want to raise the truck. When these are deflated or down to minimum PSI, I want the truck to sit stock. Like I've said in the past, I want to lower this thing. So I'm not going to do that. If I screw up and if I'm wrong, I can always come back and readjust that. That's my out. So you can see I've got the bolts shoved through from the inside out, and then I've got the one down here that they said to use that I said no thank you. Okay, this is in the first person view as I'm sitting here installing it all. That is why you need to go from the inside out and put the nut on the outside. Put the nut out here, and that way this is as flat as possible. See how far that bolt protrudes? That's beside a balloon. It'd be so much easier to do that. Come in from here and then put the nut on, but no, you can't do that. Now what you can do, which is what I did here, as I was struggling and squeezing this down and putting the bolts in, I put this one in from the outside in because it was easy. Then I put this one in properly, and now I can pop that out and run the bolt through there properly. And now it's going to be easy because I'm not fighting anything.
like that. Now, put a little dab of thread locker on here, here, and here, and zap them in place. I've already tightened, torqued. Then the U-bolts will go from here to over here. And same thing on this side over here, right here, and underneath to there. It grabs down onto the leaf spring and it pulls it down, secures it. This is up against the leaf spring right here. So that's just going to secure it and snug it down. And then the instruction says to check and make sure that you can get your hand all the way around. Again, that's a balloon. Oh, I still gotta tighten this one up. Hey. Thanks, guys. They didn't put a reminder at the end of the instructions for that. On the back side of the airbag, this is the U-bolt that holds it all to the leaf spring. Here's one of the problems. And again, it's not a huge problem, but depending on how well you're equipped, it could be a real pain in the butt. I can't get to this with the impact. The more you use power tools, the bigger of a deal that is. If you've never touched a power tool, then you don't know what you're missing. Now, the real kick of the pants is I can't get a deep socket in here either. That means you're stuck using a wrench, or hopefully you've got some ratchet wrenches.
2 days later.
Now what I'll do here, I'll go ahead and snug down this outer one with the zip zap. No, I won't, it's already been snugged down. Yep. See, with that shaft, or with this long shank, I can't even get all the way down on there. This is a cheap, generic Taiwan socket. It's good, it only goes up to there. But, here we go. I'll tighten this one down a little bit more. Yeah, it's already there. So, I need to get whatever I can on this back one. Try to make it easier. All right. Hardware installation is done. Other than some plumbing up here, which will be easy. Pop the hose in here onto that elbow, that 90, and run it out and back to the back of the truck. Otherwise, this side is done. Now I gotta back this thing out. I gotta move all this crap, all this stuff over here. Drop this thing down. Well, put the wheel on first. Drop this thing down, turn it around, and back it in and start all over again on the other side. Matter of fact, that's the point we're at in the instructions. Oh wait, it does have the notice to fully tighten the nut, the bolt on the bottom. My bad. Awesome. Very last step here on page 6. It says, awesome. You're done with the left. Go back to step 1 and repeat all the steps for the right side installation. Almost halfway done. Okay, let's hold up and talk about safety for just a second here. This is a floor jack. That and that are jack stands. These are cheap pieces of junk. They are Harbor Freight. They have a bad rep because they're garbage. Now, even if you get the nicest jack stands, if you get a set, they're always sold in sets of 2 or 4. If it says that this is a set of 5,000 pound jack stands, does not mean that that holds 5,000 pounds and that holds 5,000 pounds. That means that combined, they can support 5,000 pounds. Don't just use one jack stand and expect it to support 5,000 pounds. Now you remember I couldn't figure out what the heck this was all about. Well, looked at the instructions. That's what it's for. Mount the Schrader valve on there, then you zip tie this down to protected secure location. They show it zip tied to the frame. And that's how they're advertising no drill. I'm gonna drill, but back by the license plate. So I got this side done now. The second one goes quicker. Even if you mess up and have to stop because you mess up a bolt and have to rethread it. I didn't do any of that, but I'm talking about, yeah, I'm talking about like one of you guys might. Yeah, I didn't. So anyways, got that one done. It's secured, even with the bolts that didn't get messed up. Now we got to do the plumbing. This is going to be easy. It's going to be quick, easy, and I'm not going to say fun. It's not fun. When it comes to cutting this, they do show something here, some do's and don'ts. You need a nice, smooth, straight cut. Not like that. Not crooked and jagged. Not pointed. Straight, 90-degree, smooth cut. The best way for most people to get this done would be with a razor blade knife, box cutter, whatever. And, I mean, it's really easy. You don't do it like this. You do it like that. It's a good way to bleed. Put it down on your workbench or your tailgates. Piece of wood. And you can get a nice cut. If you're going to plumb it with the two fittings, then you'll want to cut this in half. And the best way to do that is just stretch it out, make it even, and then when you get to the center point, cut it. Don't fold this stuff. If you fold it, then that piece is bad and needs cut out. No good. Now, since I'm going to tee mine together and then just have one coming out, I'm not going to do it that way. But here, let's look at this real quick. This is how easy these things are to use. All right, you see it's got this collar right here. All you got to do, you don't need to spit on it, you don't need to lube it. Just push it, shove it all the way in until it bottoms out, and then pull. That's it. Done. Now, if you need to take it apart, when it's new and clean and fresh, you can just push in, then push the collar in and pull it out. See, that's on, right? Look, not moving. Push it in, push on the collar, and pull the whole thing apart. Boom. After it's been underneath your truck for 30,000 miles, 50,000 miles, 100,000 miles, that's not going to work very well. If you leave slack in your hose underneath, you can cut it off. Just cut it, boom, then you have this whole piece off, and you can either replace this or work on it on the bench and try and get it out, flush some oil in there, water, whatever you have. Clean it all up, blow some air through it externally, like in that little crack right there, that gap, whatever it takes. And that finally, once you get it off, then you have it off. I'm the cheapest man I know, but I would probably just buy another. Now that is something else here. On this kit, it comes with two. I'm only using one. I'm gonna put some of this hose and the other valve, and I'm gonna keep it in the truck. That way, if there's a roadside emergency, I'm prepared. And as long as I carry it, I'll never need it, ever. All right, let's do it. Pro tip. I love pro tips. I don't care who's giving them. You don't have to be a pro, just claim to be a pro. I'm gonna have this stainless steel fitting sticking out of my black plastic part of my bumper. It's gonna draw a lot of attention to itself. As far as a beautiful, sexy truck goes, this is ugly. You could paint it black, but then that'd look ghetto. I'm just going to use the provided black Schrader cap. Now, here's the pro tip. If you've ever had to hold in on the Schrader valve to air out something, an inner tube, a tire, air shocks or airbags, it's tedious, and then your finger starts to hurt, and if you keep your nails trimmed, that's pretty hard to do. You can always get one of these valve caps. It has the tool right there to where you can get in there and remove the core, and then it goes flat. You can just walk away, do whatever it is you're doing, and then when it's done hissing and making noise, you put it back in. But that's ugly. Some kid's gonna mess around with it. Some kid's gonna take it and let all the air out of all your tires. We've all seen kids that do that. Some of us, some of you, not me, some of you were probably that kid. Put this in your glove box or in your camper in the toolbox, but it's gonna get lost, right? Not if you put it on a bolt. A 1/4 bolt thread right in it. And then you not only does it not get lost, but you have a place to actually use the tool. And this doesn't look like crap. There you go, just like that. Traditionally, like back in the air shock days, people would use these right here in place of the bolt. Sticking right out, and you know, hey, that's pretty cool. But no, I'm just gonna drill a hole right here, right in line with this, probably right about here. There's some metal brackets and framework back here somewhere, but I might have to go here, but I'd like to get right there. And drill a 5/16 hole, and then stick this through. Manufacturers recommended a 5/16 inch drill bit, so I used a 5/16 inch drill bit. And I drilled in on the plastic, centered underneath there, and beautiful. Look at that. All right, time to test it out. The instructions say to leave 10 pounds in there or so at all times. And it's actually a good idea. What that does is it keeps the bags from being too small and pinched or twisted. It makes it sturdy. There we go. So let's see how this goes. Now let's see what happens when we take it up. I'm going to go up to 80 pounds. Its operating pressure is from 10 to 100 pounds. So here we go. Taking out the valve stem core. This is how fast we go from 80 to 0. Just like that. Remember, there's always upgrades that can be done. For a few hundred dollars, you can get a kit to where you don't need an external pump. You don't need a Schrader valve outside. You plumb it to a button inside the cab. Usually those ones come with a gauge, or at least the nice ones do. Starting off with the kit, I didn't feel it was necessary. I wanted to get in, I wanted a cheap entry level. And since that's what this channel is all about, is, you know, camping on the cheap pretty much. Save all your money for a nice camper and save on everything else. This shows that the compressor deal is not necessarily needed. Like I said, this will just show that an onboard compressor is nothing more than a luxury. You don't need it. It's very nice to have. I'm sure that the nicer ones you can actually use to air up your tires or even your camper tires. That's super nice. Then you don't be needing this. Remember, this does not increase how much you can haul. Cannot increase how much you can carry. You and I both know everybody uses it like that, and technically I guess I am too. But even if you are within your limits, this will create a much more stable drive. It'll get your headlights out of somebody's mirrors, and it just sets everything back up to how it's supposed to be, even if you are within your weight limits. Next week we're going camping. It's just going to be a regular camp trip in our local campgrounds. I'll be hauling it from Springfield to the campgrounds, which is only like 15 miles at the most. I think it's more like 10, but I'll get a feel for it and see if it's a noticeable difference. Till next time, if I don't see you in the campgrounds, I hope to see you in the comments. Take it easy.